Today we continue on with more of the investment stuff. It's almost like a part two. And so that's where we're going to pick up today. I wanted to review your investment scavenger hunt. So they had two activities outside of our normal e-text quiz, blah, 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 matching, true, false, all that jazz. The investment calculator and the investment scavenger hunt. So both of those were due. And so if you haven't done them yet, you can get back and do them for 80%. But I think they're both important exercises, especially as we go into this week with the investment stuff. So the investment scavenger hunt, I'm going to do a little screen share here. And I think I've got Rachel's here. So Rachel, I might ask you a few questions as we go through it, so you can be prepared on your unmuting. So there was 20 items that basically needed to be found, and we were looking at rates of return. So the first one was the rate of return on a certificate of deposit, what Dave calls a certificate of depression. And so you can see the depressing part here with the 1.85. Give me a thumbs up. Does it show that we're recording? I meant to double check. I assume we are because I usually have it started recording. Okay, I saw Jalen. Thanks, Jalen. Saw you there. So the certificate of deposit, or certificate of depression, the depressing part here comes in when you got 1.85%. And if you start to put that into our investing calculator, that doesn't get you to first base. So where we want to get into is kind of a 8 to 12% expected rate of return. And so here, number 3 was the highest performing mutual fund this year. And that was the small cap. Remember, that means that there's kind of smaller companies, and 1 year, a 40% return. Pretty sweet, right? 3 years, 28%. 5 years, 21%. Even the 10-year was pretty good on that one. That one really is a pretty good fund. Now, 10 years brings us back to the financial crisis, just after the financial crisis of 2008. So stocks were really at a low, and so the last 10 years have been a pretty good ride for a lot of investments. And so that's what we see is you don't want to have your money here in this loser if you've done baby step number 1, 2, and 3, where you've got an emergency fund saved up. You want to get your money into some potentially more riskier stuff. So on the chat box, what was the D word that mutual funds brought to the table that lowered risk? What's the big D word with investing that mutual funds kind of automatically give us in the chat box? So diversification, good, Hannah. Quick on the draw. So a mutual fund has maybe 200 companies, or they can be of all sizes, but you're instantly buying all of those companies when you buy that mutual fund. And so here, moving down on Rachel's list here, we've got mutual funds here of a large cap, larger growth, 12%. U.S. Global Leaders, that's a growth fund. So you kind of look for these key words for the investment portfolio that Dave is advising to have 25% large cap, 25% mid cap, 25% small cap, and 25% international. So we have all of our stocks into some sort of growth type funds. All right, so let's look at gold. You'll hear, especially during times of like the pandemic now, the crisis, that people are turning to gold. Go for gold. Well, gold in general sucks, so don't do that. What we found, so Rachel's number here, we've got gold at $1,700 per ounce. And I have in front of me, I know I'm just the little picture right now, but I have in front of me the same worksheet that students of mine did for this class I have Taylor Bro's paper from 2012 when I taught the class November 26th of 2012. And I like to pull this out to give you an example. So back in 2012, oh, it's kind of funny. It's really close. Gold was selling for $1,729. So $1,729 in 2012. Does that sound like a good investment to go from $729 to $1,711? Of course not, right? So stay away from commodities in terms of long-term investing. Oil, back in 2012 from Rachel's paper, $87.68. You guys have been enjoying filling up your tank, right? Here in Ottawa, it's $1.49. I'm kind of curious, what is the price at the pumps? If you guys can put the state that you're in, if you're not in Kansas, those of you who are in different states, put what the gas is selling for at the pump, put your state, and then what you've seen for gas prices. $1.49 here in Ottawa, Kansas has been pretty much consistent for the last few weeks. California, $2.80. All right. Washington, $2.50. Florida, $1.99 for Joey. Puerto Rico, Daniel, is that right? 43. Oh, are you measuring it on, is that per liter in Puerto Rico by chance? Or some sort of different measurement instead of gallons? $1.59, Olathe, Kansas, $1.60. Yeah, so around the globe, prices have plummeted. Okay, it was. Okay, got it. And Louisiana. So I just heard on the news this morning that Russia and the Saudis or something have made an agreement to cut back production 10% to try to bring prices up again. But it only had a modest impact. There's such an oil glut right now, so there's a huge supply of oil. So we'll probably be able to enjoy gas prices fairly low for a while now. So let's move down to Walmart here and McDonald's. So these right in here, let's see, on McDonald's, let's see, 52-week high. So the last year for McDonald's, $99.70 was the 52-week high. So that's a common statistic that they'll show, like what the highest price was in the last year. Back in 2012, that high was 102, by the way. That's interesting. $102 back in 2012. I think it was $102.20. Walmart, the low for Walmart, 86. It was 57 back in 2012. So not too bad of a return long-term for Walmart. Coca-Cola, what are we looking at here? Coca-Cola was the stock symbol, current price. Okay, so that's the current price of Coca-Cola is $49. Back in 2012, it was $37. So $37. And so this is the reason we don't put our money into single stocks. Are these companies good companies? Sure. And so they're going to be in one of our mutual funds that we own. If you do the investing that we're doing in this section, you're going to own some of McDonald's, some of Walmart, some of Coca-Cola, but you're not going to have all your eggs in that one basket. So let me do a little 10-second pause for questions. I've kind of gone over some different ones there. I think this is real insightful to fill out this scavenger hunt. So Treasury bonds, this will be an interesting development as we move through the crisis. So the United States of America issues Treasury bonds. That's how Trump is going to borrow the $2 trillion plus, minimum of $2 trillion, it sounds like at this point, to give for the pandemic. So the $1,200 checks that you guys are going to be getting, that's going to be borrowed from the financial markets through these Treasury bonds. So this will be a 5-year contract. This will be a 6-month contract. Okay, so the 5-year is apparently, Rachel, what's going on with 100%? Is that possibly a typo or?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I just wrote down what I found online.
Okay. Well, it's way too high, unless there was something really turbulent. The question was, let's see, what was it? The United States Treasury bond rate for a 5-year bond. That rate should be probably around, I would guess, 3% or so would be my guess. So Rachel, if you want to go ahead and Google it for me, do it one more time, and see what you find for Treasury bond 5-year. So 0.22, this is the money market accounts. Like if you have a money market account at a bank or something, this is the type of stuff they're investing in usually, is government bonds. And so 0.22% is really low. Rachel, did you find something? You're muted.
My internet is slow.
Oh, your internet's slow. Okay, well, maybe some other people could help. I'd like to crack this code. I'm not going to do it myself. Why don't everybody out there just do a Google search for 5-year Treasury bond and then put it up on the chat box. Basically, these are ones we want to avoid. This is not where we're going to be putting our long-term investment dollars. If it was 100%, we might want to. Okay, Hannah, 0.41, that sounds good. In fact, maybe that's what it is, Rachel. Your 100 is actually meant to be just zeros, and 0.47 could be. I'd like to get a few more people looking if you got the 5-year to put on the chat box. It should, yeah, it's such a common rate that we should all probably be getting basically the same answers. Okay, Jeffrey, 0.41, 0.41. Okay, good enough. So 0.41, and when you did it, it very well could have been 0.47, and maybe the rates came down since the market opened again. So that very well could be. Okay. So then we've got our small cap. Check this out. This is one of our 25%. So again, with the small cap, we've got 34%. And then let's see, 1-year return, Fidelity Advisor. This is on a growth stock, 1 year. Oh, 1 year higher than the 5-year. So we got a 5-year return of 17 and 39. So this is just some evidence that, you know, some people might say to you, oh, Rachel, you can't get 10%. Your finance professor was, you know, full of it. Well, now hopefully you guys have the power at your fingertips to show, no, this is very doable, right? This is expected if you're in the right type of thing to get that rate of return, and it's without a ton of risk. Okay, 10-second pause for questions. Would you suggest selling all my single stocks and investing in ETFs? So I won't spend too much. ETFs can be basically a mutual fund. That's an exchange traded fund. And the answer is probably yes, Corey, depending on how many single stocks. It is possible to acquire enough single stocks that you're building a portfolio. But the problem is they probably won't be in the right category unless they were all like large cap funds. But you can kind of build your own. So you wouldn't necessarily have to sell them all. It would depend on some other factors. We can talk about it after class if you want. All right, anybody else? Is 0.21 return normal for a $1,000 investment? Is that 21% or 0.21%? Jeffrey. 0.21%. It is if you've got it into this treasury bond, like that's what this exercise does. So you guys really need to do the investment scavenger hunt. So if you invest your $1,000 into a 6-month treasury bond, that's a 6-month IOU from Trump, right? So that's a government bond. where the government promises to pay you back your money in 6 months, that would be an expected rate of return for that. Now, if you put your $1,000 into the small cap growth fund, which is what you want to do with investments, that when you're ready for them, that you have your 3 to 6 month emergency fund, then you're going to start expecting 8 to 12% return. That's what you'd expect on a $1,000 investment. The amount of money that you put in is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. You can put $100,000 in, or $1,000 in, or $500 in, or $100 in. It doesn't matter. When you buy one share, let's say the small cap growth fund is selling for $33, right? So you're actually buying one share of Vitris Car Small Cap Growth Fund. You're going to buy one share, and I don't know what that share stands for. I'm just making this up. But let's just say that fund is selling for $33 a share. If you put $100 in, you're going to buy 3 shares. So $100 buys, oops, let me move that, 3 shares of Vitris. And then if those shares return a 30% return, then one share is going to be increasing up to about $43, right? So $44 if I want to be. So 33%, 1/3 of 33 is $11. You with me? And so if you earned a 34% return on a $33 investment, that means the share price went up from $33 to $44. You added $11 onto your investment. Everybody cool with that? Give me a little chat love if that makes sense to you. Give me a yes, no, or thumbs up, an emoji, whatever you want. That's what we're doing here. Okay, so any other final questions? I'm going to keep talking a little bit about this as we move into the next thing. So let me change my share. Whoops, I didn't necessarily want to stop share. Let me go to the whiteboard here. Okay, so Dave talked about the cookie jar and the coat briefly in the last chapter. So this chapter is going to talk about the coat. Let me get blue here. So chapter 10 is the cookie jar. So there's your cookie jar. Inside the cookie jar, you've got 4 cookies. In the chat box, what are the 4 types of investment that you're putting your money in? 25%, 25%, 25%. So each time you're going to buy 4 different types of cookies. In the chat box, what did we call those cookies? I've already mentioned them today already. But you need to have your cookies memorized for the final exam. So what types of mutual funds are we going to do? We're going to do it at the level of 25%, 25%. Okay, I see the chat box starting to light up here. Good. Okay, you got them all there, Jeffrey. So 25%. Hopefully some of you guys else, you can put them in. Oops, that looks like a weird 25%. Let me undo that, undo that, undo that, undo that. All right. 25%, 25%. All right. So this cookie is all small cap companies. This cookie is mid cap companies. This cookie is a large cap, big companies. And finally, this cookie is international companies. So I've got those 4 types of cookies in my cookie jar. So these are the investments that I'm doing. So these are the investments. This is, if you put them into your investment calculator, that is what you're doing, is buying those cookies with your retirement fund. Baby step number, go to the chat box, baby step number 4. Write it all out like you're gonna have to do it on the final exam. And we can kind of play off each other, but be as complete as possible. Baby step number 4. 15% of your income into retirement. Good, Joey. So when you get your paycheck and you're making $40,000 a year, 10% of 40,000 is 4,000. Half of that is 2. So you're going to be putting in $6,000 per year. If you were making $40,000 a year, 15% of your income is 6,000 bucks. So you're going to be putting in, if we broke that into months, that's $500 per month. What are you putting them into? You're going to put, if you had $500, a fourth of it's going to go into small cap, a fourth of it's going to go into mid cap, a fourth of it's going to go into large cap, and a fourth of it's going to go into international. Okay, so chapter 11's topic, chapter 11 is on tax benefits. So the government has created tax benefits to encourage you to invest on your own. In part, they kind of know that they're probably not going to have enough money for you. If you guys didn't know this, if you haven't taken my macroeconomics class, the Social Security Fund is going to be going bust in about 2038. So you guys need to kind of take care of yourselves. And one of the things that the government does is it creates a coat. So the coat is what Dave Ramsey uses as an analogy to keep away the bitter cold of taxes. So here's my coat. Let's see, we'll put some buttons on the coat here. I'm not very good at drawing. All right, there we go. So there's your coat. So it's a tax coat. And when you hear the words 401k and 503b and IRA and Roth IRA, when you start to hear these words, what they are is a different type of coat. So each one of these is a coat, and it's going to protect your investments from the bitter cold of taxes. So we're going to wrap the coat around the jar, as you've seen Dave, I think, do in some videos already. He's going to continue to do that. We're going to wrap the coat around our investments to protect them. And that benefit's going to come in different ways for us. Let me take a 10-second pause here, see if anybody's got any questions on the coat. You can unmute if you want, or I'll launch the chat box too. Okay, so I know the whole idea of Roth is better than traditional, right? Yes, I'll talk about that next here on what the difference is. So here's how investments work for tax benefits. So if you make, I'm just going to do $100,000 just to keep the numbers easy. So you make $100,000 combined, you and your significant other. And normally you're going to pay some taxes. So let's just say that puts you in a 20% tax bracket. And so at 20% taxes, you're going to have $80,000 to go spend, right? And you can go run to the store and buy stuff, buy a new car. Another thing you can do is buy an investment. So let's say you put $10,000 into the cookies. So this could be your investment. The investment, as I'm describing it, does not involve a coat. Okay, so no tax benefit, which means if you do the investment, then you only have $70,000 to spend on beer, pizza, and maybe a car still, and some chicken wings. All right, so there you go, right? So you got $70,000 that you're able to spend on that stuff. So here's how the coat works. One of the coats is a traditional IRA. So the IRA allows it to be tax deductible. So you start with your $100,000 gross income, and now we're going to put $10,000 into investments, same investments we did before, but the government's going to do them pre-tax. So you're going to open up an IRA coat to wrap around these same investments, which means now you've got $90,000 that's going to be taxable at 20%. Is now our, what do we got here? 18,000, right? So 10% of 90,000 is 9,000. And then we're doubling that because it's 20%. So 20% of 90,000 is $18,000 of tax. Do you see how you saved some tax money? You saved $2,000. Give me some chat box yeses if you see that. Now, compared to paying 20%, I only paid 18,000. That is the tax break. That's the tax break that we're talking about. Let me do a little erasing here, so we can leave both those numbers up. Okay. All right, so now you got $18,000. And so after tax now, 90,000 minus 18,000, what do we get here? 72,000. Is my brain working right? So yeah, $72,000. Now check it out. This is what I get to go buy: beer, chicken wings, pizza, and everything. I have $2,000 more money to go do that now because I put the IRA coat around it. So that was the tax benefit. It's a pre-tax item. Okay, questions on that? So how does the Roth work? How the Roth works is, let me put, what color should I add here? How about light blue? Remember with my first one that this was your investment here. And if you do a Roth IRA, then this is going to still work out the same way, except now there's no tax when you pull it. No tax on withdraw. Let's just put WD. So when the investment grows, like 40 years from now, when you're trying to pull it at age 61 or 65 or whatever, you're not going to have any tax. With the traditional IRA, the tax benefit came up front. You didn't pay any tax when you first got it. So then when you do withdraw it, it gets taxed at withdrawal. Okay, so that's the main difference between Roth IRA and the traditional IRA. 10-second pause for questions. Okay, so let me kind of lay this out a little bit differently. So here, if you think about 10,000 straight up, you got your $10,000 investment, you got your 10K IRA, regular IRA, which also could be 401k or something too, which we'll get into details later. Or you got your 10K Roth. All right, so if you do a regular 10,000, here's how the government kind of works. You get taxed at the beginning. So you get taxed today at the purchase. You get taxed on the hold. So if you earned dividends, which is money that you get from your stocks, and you generated some income, if you generated some interest income, this is money that you actually got, by the way, not the example I showed where the small growth stock went up from $33 to $44. that doesn't get taxed. But if one of your investments pays out some interest, then the government wants a piece of it. They want their 20%. So if you made $10,000 worth of interest on your investments, the government's going to get some tax. And then finally, at the sale, we have what's called capital gains tax. So if your $10,000 is now worth $100,000, which it very well might be if you were long-term, right? You just turned $10,000 into $100,000. You just made $90,000 when you sold it. The government says, I want a piece of that. So they're going to take whatever your applicable tax rate is. What the example I did would be 20%, but it'd be whatever tax rate you have. So if you notice a theme here with the government, I'm going to go with black because it's kind of dark here. Tax, 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 right? The tax man is along for the ride the whole time. If you're making money, the government wants a cut, bottom line, which is fine. We got to fight COVID and do some other things. I mean, that's part of it. So how does this differ now with the IRA? With the IRA, at the time you purchase, you've got the tax benefits. So no tax while you hold it, if you did get anything and it rolls in. And then finally, you pay the tax at the end. So that's with the traditional code, what we call an IRA. And then finally, the Roth IRA, there is tax up front, but then there's no tax and no tax. And so we're going to do some exercises where Dave recommends the Roth IRA. And the reason is that I would rather pay taxes up front, and then if my money grows to 100,000, when you pull it out, you actually get 100,000, right? You don't have to worry about what state the government is. If Bernie Sanders-ish type of person is in office 40 years from now in the United States, and your tax rate is now 60%, we don't have to worry about that, right? We kind of made our long-term planning based on not having our funds be taxed at the tail end. All right, class dismissed.